Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into surviving the trenches of the First World War. Before we begin, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Doing so helps more than you can imagine. Now, get comfortable and enjoy our look at life in the trenches of World War I. The first thing you notice is the mud. Not just the texture of it beneath your boots, though that alone is bad enough, but its smell. It's everywhere. Thick, wet, sour. A stink that clings to everything. Your clothes, your hands, the inside of your nose. It never goes away. You'll smell it in your dreams. You'll taste it in your tea. It is the constant background of this place, as familiar and unwelcome as the lice under your collar. You step down into the trench slowly. The ladder is slick. Your kit weighs heavy on your back, and you're not used to it yet. The men already down there don't offer a hand. They don't speak. They just glance up briefly, eyes dark beneath the brim of their helmets, and then go back to whatever they were doing, sharpening a bayonet, writing a letter, staring into nothing. That last one's the most common. This is the Western Front. Somewhere in France or Belgium, the location doesn't matter. Not really. One section of mud and misery looks like any other. Your battalion's been marching for days to get here, through villages turned to rubble, fields churned by artillery, and forests stripped bare by shell fire. You saw your first dead horse yesterday, swollen, legs stiff, flies thick on its eyes. You gagged. One of the older lads laughed and said, "Wait till you see the lads." You thought he meant your fellow soldiers. Now you realize he didn't. The trench is narrow. Shoulders brush timber and clay. Duckboards beneath your feet creak with every step. There are pools of water in the corners, the occasional drip from above. The walls aren't smooth. They're jagged, rough, held together with sandbags, wood planks, the occasional sheet of corrugated iron. Everything's wet. Everything's rotten. It's like walking through a corpse that forgot to lie down. You try not to breathe too deeply. Someone shouts. You flinch, but it's not the enemy. Just a corporal telling a runner to shift it. The runner takes off down the trench, splashing mud onto your boots as he passes. You want to ask someone where to go, but no one seems interested in helping the new lad. Eventually, a sergeant gives you a nod and jerks his thumb toward a dugout. Inside, it's darker than outside. A few flickering candles. A bunk, if you can call a plank of wood that. Two men sit playing cards on an overturned crate. Another snores loudly in the corner. His mouth is open. You see he's missing most of his teeth. "New?" one of the card players asks without looking up. You nod. "Don't unpack. You won't be here long." You don't know whether he means rotation or death, and you don't ask. Later, when you're alone, you write a letter to your sister. You try to describe what it's like, but nothing comes out right. You tell her the food's not too bad, that the lads are all right, that the uniform fits. You lie, because the truth would worry her, and what would be the point? She can't send you clean socks or peace treaties. She's just a name on an envelope, and you're just a ghost in waiting. Night falls, not that it gets properly dark. Flares go up now and then, illuminating the trench in ghostly white for a few seconds before everything drops back into gloom. The sounds are constant, the rumble of distant artillery, the occasional rattle of machine gun fire, boots splashing, coughing, someone quietly sobbing. You hear a rat squeal nearby, then silence. Someone got it. You try to sleep. It's a fool's errand. The ground is too hard, your uniform is soaked through, and you're too anxious to let go. The fear is new. Not the sharp kind you get in sudden danger, but a slow, suffocating dread that presses down on you like the weight of the trench itself. You realize you're not scared of dying. You're scared of staying alive, here, like this, forever. A few hours later, you're shaken awake for sentry duty. The man who wakes you doesn't say anything. He just touches your shoulder and moves on. You sit on the fire step, rifle in hand, peering over the parapet into the dark. You're not supposed to look directly. Just listen. Watch for movement. You don't know what you're looking for. Nothing happens. That's the thing no one told you. War isn't constant fighting. It's waiting. Endless, nerve-shredding waiting. Every second that passes without something happening makes you more certain something is about to. You stare at the wire, the shapes in the mud, the gaps between sandbags, and wonder if they're moving. If someone's watching you. If someone's already got you in their sights. Your hands shake. You grip the rifle harder. The shift ends, eventually. Someone else takes your place. You step down, knees stiff, and try again to rest. You manage an hour, maybe 2. You wake when a shell lands somewhere up the line. You're not hit. This time, you hear someone say, "That was close." You nod, even though it wasn't aimed at you. The next morning, you're given rations. Bread, tea, some sort of meat. It's cold, tasteless, but you eat every crumb. Hunger lives here too, quieter than the rats, but more persistent. You're told you'll be sent up the line tomorrow. There's a push planned. You don't ask questions. You don't want answers. That day, you get your first proper tour of the trench. The latrines, glorified holes with planks over them. The officer's dugout, a bit drier, with slightly fewer rats. The periscope you used to peek over the top. The lookout post where someone died last week. The corner that smells worse than the rest. No one explains why. The men speak in short sentences. Most of them don't bother learning your name. Not yet. Too many names to remember already. Names of lads they liked. Lads they lost. Better not to get attached. You're shown how to fire your rifle, how to fix your bayonet, how to cover your ears when the big guns go off. You're told to keep your boots dry, and then you're laughed at. Dry, one of them says. Good one. You laugh too, because what else is there to do? That night, you dream of your own bed, of clean sheets, of sunlight that doesn't feel like a trick, of silence, not the tense, ticking kind, but real silence. You wake up with a start, unsure where you are. Then the trench reminds you. You see your first dead man the following day. He's not one of yours. Not today. He's been here a while. Half buried in the mud near the edge of the communication trench. You nearly step on him. His face is gone. His uniform is shredded. One boot missing. No one moves him. They just step around. You do too. Someone says he was from the Royal Welsh. Someone else says he's German. It doesn't matter anymore. He's just a shape now. A warning, a prophecy. Your own boots are starting to smell. Your skin itches constantly. You pick lice out of your shirt seams. You kill 10, 20 a day, but they always return. You've stopped flinching at the rats. You've started to ignore the smell. You're not getting used to it. You're just forgetting what anything else feels like. You write another letter. You say you're doing well, that the boys are in good spirits. You include a joke someone told. You sign it with a flourish and try to imagine her reading it at the kitchen table. You wonder if you'll ever go home. Not in the when this is all over sense. Not in the victory by Christmas sense. You wonder if you'll ever actually leave the trench behind, even if you make it out alive. Because already it feels like it's sinking into you. The mud, the fear, the waiting. The trench doesn't just surround you. It fills you. It gets into your bones. And part of you knows, the moment you step down into it, the real you stopped being something you could keep. You've become one more silent face in the line. One more man in a uniform, shuffling forward through the muck, eyes scanning the horizon for the flash of a sniper or the arc of a flare. You're not a hero. You're not a soldier. You're just one more man trying not to die in a place where death comes cheap and often. Welcome to the front. You never expected the trench to feel this endless. It twists and forks like a labyrinth, stretching beyond your sight in both directions. Sometimes you feel like it's growing, like the earth itself is alive and pulling you deeper into its stomach. Every turn looks the same buckled boards, the same rotting sacks, the same walls of clay held together by more hope than engineering. You walk through it like a rat in a maze, never entirely sure whether you're heading to safety or toward the next shell. You've started to name sections in your head, not the names on the map. Those are for officers and reports. No, yours are simpler. The corner that smells like piss and something worse, the pit. The stretch where the planks sag under your feet and you pray they hold, the creek. The bit near the communication trench where the wind whistles mournfully through broken boards, the ghost's mouth. These names won't go into any report. They're not meant to. They're survival spells, private ways of making sense of a place that refuses to be made sense of. There's no straight line from front to back. You don't walk out of the trench the way you walk out of a room. You shuffle through it. You edge past others. You duck under collapsed beams and duck again when the sky flashes and a shell screams past. The whole thing is a living contradiction, designed to protect, yet barely holding together. A shield made of wet timber and spit. And it's always wet. The rain here doesn't fall. It seeps. Through the sky, through the soil, through your boots, your coat, your soul. You gave up on dry socks days ago. Everyone has. You sleep wet, wake wet, march wet, eat wet. The damp gets into your bones. You're 21 and your knees feel 80. You don't remember what dry skin feels like. One morning, you are assigned to repair duty. A section of the forward trench collapsed overnight. No one says why, but you know. The mud gets heavy. Sometimes it just gives up. Sometimes it's not the mud at all, just a shell that landed too close. Either way, the wall's down and the trench is exposed. You're handed a shovel and sent down the line with 3 others. You spend the next 6 hours moving wet earth. You dig, you fill, you pack sandbags. It's hard work, but you almost welcome it. You're warm for once. Your muscles ache in a way that feels earned. You don't think while digging, not about letters, not about gas, not about what comes next. There's a kind of peace in it, until someone finds a hand. Just a few fingers, really, poking from the earth like roots. You stop. Everyone stops. There's a moment of silence, not out of respect, but calculation. Is it German? Is it one of ours? Is it worth digging the rest of the body out, or should you just work around it? The sergeant comes over, looks at the hand, then at the hole, then at you. Leave it, he says. It's holding the wall up. So you leave it. You pile more sandbags. You pat the earth down. You cover the hand. You cover the hand. You go back to digging. When your shift ends, you sit on the fire step with your boots off, peeling socks from your feet and examining the skin underneath. It's white and puckered, like boiled meat. You're told to dry them by the brazier, but the brazier's been out for hours. No one wants to waste kindling. Fire draws attention. Attention gets people killed. A chaplain comes by at dusk. Offers a prayer, some tea, a bit of scripture. He doesn't preach, just talks. Calmly, kindly. You wonder how long he'll last. The last one took shrapnel to the leg and bled out screaming in the aid post. You wonder if this one knows that. There's a joke someone tells over and over. What's the difference between a trench and a coffin? Coffins are drier. You've started to see what they mean. At night, you lie awake and listen to the trench breathe. It does, you're sure of it. You can hear the air moving through cracks, the soft slop of mud settling, the skitter of rats running along duckboards. It has a rhythm. Not natural, but not random either. Like something deep underground trying to speak in pulses. If you listen too long, it starts to make sense. That's when you stop. There are times you think you might lose your mind. It's not the fear, not directly. You've made peace with fear. It's the monotony, the lack of anything. No color, no softness, no variation. Every surface is brown or gray or green. Every sound is either too loud or too distant. Even the smell, which was unbearable when you arrived, has become just another part of the air. You can't remember what fresh bread smells like, or your mother's perfume, or clean sheets. You try to picture your house, your street, your bed. You can't. Your mind flattens. Your memories fade. The trench erases everything that doesn't help you survive it. The worst part? The waiting. You can't explain it unless you've done it. It's not sitting still. It's not relaxing. It's a kind of coiled paralysis. Like you're constantly braced for a punch that never comes until it does. Sometimes you hear it. The change in tone. The way distant shell fire turns sharp. Someone yells, then silence, then the ground lifts, and the trench moves, just slightly, like a living thing reacting to pain. You don't always get advance warning. Sometimes the first sign is the man beside you dropping without a sound. Or the sudden loss of part of the wall. Or the momentary blinding white light, so bright it looks like daytime before darkness crashes down again. You survive another night. The next morning, the trench is different. Subtly. A new hole. A gap where a man used to be. You don't mention it. No one does. You just step over the blood, collect your tin of tea, and go about your orders. One morning you wake up and realize you haven't seen your own face in days. No mirror. No reflection. You touch your cheek and feel stubble, grime, scabs. You wonder what you look like, if your mother would recognize you. A rat runs across your legs. You don't flinch. The trench has a way of normalizing things that should never be normal. You eat beside corpses. You joke about missing limbs. You sleep with your boots on because you know there might be no time to put them on later. You live in 2-minute increments. You learn to savor silence, not because it's peaceful, but because it's not deadly. One afternoon, you get a letter from home. It's from your sister. She talks about the garden and the dog and how the butcher gave her extra bacon because she smiled at him. You read it 5 times. You fold it carefully and place it in your breast pocket. You press your hand over it now and then, like it's armor. That night, a man in your unit doesn't wake up. He wasn't shot, wasn't shelled. He just didn't wake. Heart gave out, someone says. Or maybe he was already gone and no one noticed. You help carry the body down the line. There's a section behind the trench where they've been digging shallow graves. Wooden crosses, dog tags nailed in. You set him down. Someone mutters a prayer. It feels like a performance, a gesture for the living. You walk back in silence. The trench smells a little worse that night. You notice it more when you've been away, even briefly. It's like diving back into a pit. But then, as always, you adjust. It becomes background again. The men keep talking, scratching, drinking tea. Life, if you can call it that, resumes. And so does the waiting. You start to understand why the older lads go quiet sometimes. Why they stare at the sky like they're reading something. Why some of them don't bother ducking anymore. It's not courage. It's not carelessness. It's fatigue. The kind that seeps deeper than your skin. The kind that lives in your bones and doesn't leave when you rest. If you rest, there's a saying passed around the trench. If the mud don't get you, the rats will. And if they don't, well, there's always Fritz. You chuckle the first time you hear it. You don't laugh the second time. The trench takes. That's what it does. It takes bits of you. First the simple things, dry feet, clean hands, fresh food. Then bigger things, sleep, peace, memory. Eventually it takes your name. You stop being a person. You become a function, a shape, a target, a number on a rotation schedule. And still you dig. You reinforce. You march. You stand to. because the war isn't won yet, and because no one has the luxury of stopping. Not here, not in the trench, not in this place that devours men slowly and silently and forgets them just as quickly. You grip your rifle, you step back onto the duckboard, and you keep going. You wake before dawn, not because anyone calls your name, but because of the cold. It's always the cold. There's a stillness to it, not peaceful, hostile. You're not even sure if you've properly slept. Time in the trench doesn't follow rules. You doze, you jerk awake, you close your eyes again. The body tries, the brain refuses. Dreams rarely come, and if they do, they're not of home. They're fragments. Colors, faces, explosions that never finish. The morning routine starts with stand to. Everyone's up and on the fire step before first light. Weapons checked, eyes scanning no man's land. It's one of the oldest rules in the book. Attacks often come at dawn. Every man stands with his rifle loaded, bayonet fixed, waiting in silence. You stare out across the cratered expanse, the wire twisted like skeletal fingers, frost clinging to every surface. No movement, just mist. The tension during stand-to is unbearable. Your shoulders knot with every gust of wind, every creak of timber behind you. You half expect the entire horizon to suddenly explode in fire, but more often than not, nothing happens. That's the worst part. It builds and builds, and then nothing. You step down, adrenaline still buzzing, as though your body hasn't realized you've survived another morning. After stand-to comes breakfast, or something like it. Usually a mug of weak tea, half warm if you're lucky. Maybe some biscuits, hard as bricks, and a tin of bully beef, gelatinous and gray. The older lads don't even complain anymore. Complaints are for men with the energy to believe something better exists. Most just eat in silence, hands trembling slightly from the cold, steam rising from the mugs like ghosts. You sit on an upturned crate, trying not to let the mud get into your food, though you've already eaten worse. The bread, if there is any, is usually stale and sometimes moldy. You cut off the blue bits, or you don't. A man nearby jokes that the mold keeps the rats away. You both laugh. It's not true. After breakfast, there's waiting. That's most of the day, really. Not action, not drama, just waiting. You clean your rifle again, even if you cleaned it yesterday. Oil the parts, check the bolt. Count the rounds. The sergeant walks by, nods if you're working, shouts if you're not. You learn quickly not to look idle. Idle hands mean extra duties. Latrines, sandbag filling, carrying ammo up the line. Anything to keep you moving. Anything so the officers can feel useful. The lice are always biting. You scratch constantly. Every man does. You've learned to hold your shirt up to a candle to kill them, a trick passed down from the veterans. The popping sounds are strangely satisfying. You find 2 in your sleeve, 3 under your waistband. They never go away. You sleep with them, march with them, eat with them. They are your most faithful companions now. There's always someone writing a letter. The post, when it comes, is the only good thing that arrives without a string attached. You watch a man pen a note to his wife, carefully brushing mud from the envelope before handing it off to the runner. You wonder what he's telling her. Probably the same things you do. That he's fine, that the weather's been all right, that he misses her, that he'll be home soon. Lies, mostly. Beautiful, necessary lies. When the boredom gets too heavy, someone finds a deck of cards. You join a game. Lose half your tobacco in a single hand. Swear at the corporal who just grins and lights a cigarette with your last paper. You don't mind. It passes the time. You'd pay double just to forget where you are for 5 minutes. Later, you are assigned a working party. Sandbags again. The trench walls are always collapsing. Rain and shellfire do their work. You carry bags from the store line, patch holes, build new fire steps. It's hard, back-breaking work. Your hands blister, your legs ache, but you welcome it. Because you're too tired to be scared while you're working. And that's the best kind of tired there is. Sometimes, during these moments, someone will whistle a tune. A few bars of something you vaguely recognize from before the war. It echoes strangely in the trench, warped by distance and damp air. It makes you ache in a different way. Not for home, exactly, but for memory. For what it felt like to be someone who whistled simply because he was happy. By midday, your shoulders burn and your boots squelch with every step. You sit down for a moment on a crate and look out across the parapet again. The mist has cleared. You can see no man's land now, stark and ruined. It doesn't seem real, like a stage set someone forgot to pack away. Craters filled with water. Shredded trees. A boot here, a helmet there. You wonder how many bodies lie beneath that soil. How many men are still out there, slowly sinking into history. In the afternoon, a gas drill is called. Everyone grabs masks and dons them quickly. You fumble at first, the straps always twist, but you get it on. You breathe through the filter, the rubber pressing tight against your cheeks. It's claustrophobic, hot. You hear your own breath loud in your ears. You can't help thinking how terrifying it will be when the real gas comes, when there's no drill, when someone nearby doesn't get their mask on in time. You remember the man you saw last week, his lungs burning from mustard gas, his skin blistered, eyes sealed shut, coughing blood into the mud. The medic said he wouldn't make it through the night. You don't ask if you did. Later, you're sent on ration detail. You and two others walk down the communication trench to the supply point. It's a dangerous job, exposed in places, especially where the duct boards run thin and you have to climb over collapsed sections. The sniper took someone out last week near the junction. Just dropped him mid-step. No warning. 1 second alive, next second part of the scenery. You fetch the boxes, heavy and cold, and carry them back. Cans rattle, bread loaves and wax paper, more tea, a few tins of jam, the good stuff if you're lucky. You hand it off to the cookhouse, little more than a canvas shelter with a fire pit, and return to your section. Your arms ache from the weight, your stomach growls. But there's no rest. Not yet. By evening, the trench starts to glow faintly. Candles, matches, the occasional flare from further up the line. A soft orange flicker here and there, like fireflies trapped in a tunnel. You write a letter. You scratch another louse. You pull your coat tighter and try not to notice the smell. Your nose has grown numb to it, mostly. The stink of shit, damp wool, sweat, gun oil, decay. It's just part of the world now. Part of you. There's stand to again at dusk. Same routine. Same fire step. This time, someone spots movement. You freeze. Finger on the trigger. Heart pounding. The corporal leans forward. Peers through the scope. Just a fox, he mutters. You exhale. The adrenaline fades slower now. Your body doesn't trust safety anymore. You're always coiled, always waiting for the next noise to be the last one you hear. After stand down, you're told you've got sentry duty. Midnight to 2. The worst shift. Too late to sleep before. Too early to sleep after. You nod, because there's no point in arguing. Everyone gets their turn. Some doze on the fire step before their slot. Others talk quietly. One man carves initials into the butt of his rifle with a bayonet. The letters are neat, practiced. He's done this before. When your turn comes, you climb the step again. Same routine. Rifle at the ready. Eyes scanning the dark. Listening. Always listening. Every sound feels like a message. The flap of a bird. A creak of timber. The scrape of boots on duckboard. Is it one of yours, or is it something else? The darkness is thick, your ears strain, You try not to blink too long. Halfway through your shift, a shell hits somewhere down the line. Not close, but not far either. You feel the ground tremble. You taste earth in your mouth. You duck instinctively, even though you're trained not to. The man next to you laughs, nervously. The laugh turns into a cough. He spits into the trench floor and mutters something about getting out. You don't answer. What would you say? At 2 o'clock, someone taps your shoulder. Relief. You step down, stretch, hand over your post. Your back cracks. Your feet throb. You don't go to your bunk. You sit on the crate instead, looking up at the strip of sky visible through the trench walls. Stars. Somehow still there. Still shining. You find Orion. You think of your father pointing it out to you as a boy. You close your eyes. You wake up shivering, still sitting on the crate. Dawn's coming again. You pull your coat tighter. You stand up. Another day begins. You go back to the fire step. You do it all again. Because that's what a soldier's day is. Not battles. Not medals. Not music. Just this. Endurance. Repetition. Survival. And the slow, quiet erosion of everything else. The trench is alive. Not in the poetic sense. Not some battlefield metaphor. It is literally alive, teeming with things that bite, burrow, scurry, and feed. You can hear them even now, beneath your boots, in the walls, under the duckboards. They whisper, scratch, gnaw. They move through the mud like it's air. The rats come first, always the rats. You don't remember your first sight of one. You remember the second, though, because that's when you realized the first wasn't an outlier. It was a scout. The second one wasn't scared. It didn't flinch. It watched you with dull, intelligent eyes. Then it trotted past like you didn't matter. Like you were part of the trench, like the timber or the sacks or the limbs buried underfoot. They get big out here. Bigger than you'd expect. Fat from the corpses. They know the bodies better than the gravediggers. They're bold. You've seen one run off with a man's bread. You've seen another chewing on the toes of the dead. You've seen a third climb onto a sleeping man's chest and just sit there, blinking slowly, waiting for the warmth to fade. You try to kill them. You set traps. You throw rocks. You stab at them with bayonets. Some lads shoot them just to hear a sound they can control. But it's like scooping water from a flooded trench with a helmet. For every one you get, 10 more take its place. You joke about them. Give them names. Talk about promotions in the rat army. You have to laugh. Because if you don't laugh, you'll scream. And once the screaming starts, it doesn't stop. Then there's the lice. You've never seen one, not properly, but you felt them. They live in your seams, in your shirt collars, in the waistband of your trousers. You scratch until you bleed. You scratch in your sleep. You wake up with scabs beneath your nails and no memory of making them. The medics say it's normal. They say to burn your shirt seams with a candle. You do, every night, and still they return, always. They say the lice carry disease, trench fever, aching joints, raging headaches, a fever that leaves you too weak to stand, but not weak enough to die. You've seen it take men off the line for weeks, and when they come back, they're gray, like chalk rubbed into skin. Lice don't kill, not outright. They just chew you down from the inside. But the worst thing, the thing that truly creeps under your skin, is the mud. It's not ordinary mud. It's not just soil and water. It's something else, something rotten. It's mud that's been churned by boots, by hooves, by explosions, by the slow collapse of everything above it. It swallows things. Helmets, rifles, packs, men. You've seen it suck a man down to the waist. 3 lads had to haul him out. He came out laughing, then crying, then quiet. It's not just what the mud touches, it's what it hides. Beneath every step there are bodies. Bits of them. A boot with something still in it. A hand gripping nothing. A rib cage broken like splintered wood. Some of them are Germans. Some are French. Some are yours. There's no way to tell. The trench doesn't care. You don't talk about the bodies. You step over them, around them. You build the walls on top of them. Sometimes they prop up the sacks. Sometimes they poke through. Once you saw a face staring out from the wall, half buried, one eye still visible. You couldn't tell if it was open or just a trick of the light. No one moved him. He's probably still there. You tell yourself they're just shapes now, just objects, that the rats don't care whose flesh they chew, that the maggots don't ask questions. You tell yourself these things because you have to, because it's the only way to look at a skull resting in the fire step and not go mad. Trench foot is another enemy, another thing born in the filth, fed by the moisture, nurtured by your own helplessness. It starts as a numbness, then itching, then burning, then rot. The skin turns white, then gray, then black. Flesh peels away like wet paper. You've seen a man pull off his sock and come away with skin. You've seen boots cut open like surgery. You've seen toes fall off into the mud and be left there. The medics say to change your socks, keep your feet dry. But how? When there's no dry? When the air itself is wet? When the only place to rest is in standing water? You change your socks anyway. Ritual, if nothing else. You swap with your mate. You hang the wet pair around your neck under your tunic, hoping body heat will dry them. It doesn't. But the act matters. Like polishing your boots. Like shaving. These little lies of control, told over and over, hoping one of them sticks. In the worst parts of the trench, where the walls have caved, where drainage has failed, where the stink turns your stomach, you walk fast. Or you don't walk at all. You know the spots. Everyone does. They have nicknames. Hell's Belly, the Soup Pit, Drowning Alley. You joke again, but no one lingers, and still men drown. In craters, in collapsed duckboards, in places where the water rises fast after rain. 1 minute they're there, the next they're gone. You don't talk about them either. You just move on. Because what else is there to do? The plague beneath your feet is slow. It doesn't scream. It doesn't explode. It doesn't shoot. It just waits. It waits for your attention to slip, for your balance to falter, for your boots to fill, for your will to fade. The mud eats everything. It eats letters, helmets, spoons, rifles, dreams. It eats laughter. It eats memory. You think of home and the image is blurry, a field without holes, a kitchen without rats. Is that real? Or just something you made up to survive? You try to remember grass, not the shape of it, the feel, the smell. You can't. You can't even picture the sound of boots on cobblestone. All you know is the wet slap of footfalls through mud, the sucking sound of effort, the curse when someone loses a boot and sinks knee-deep into decay. The sergeant tells you to drain part of the trench. You dig a sump hole, fill it with stones. It doesn't help. The water just returns, more determined than before. It rises like it's angry, like it knows you're trying to fight it. You can't fight mud. You can only endure it, work around it, and eventually sink into it yourself. There's a man in your section, old, maybe 35, who talks to the mud, softly, like it's listening. He calls it mother. He pats the walls when he walks past. He says she gives and she takes. Some of the lads think he's cracked. You don't. You understand. Because the trench is more than timber and sandbags. It's an organism, a parasite. It feeds off the war, off the fear, off the rot, and the mud is its bloodstream. It pulses beneath you. It moves things, swallows them, preserves some, digests others. One morning, you find a boot in the duckboard. Just the sole sticking out. You think it's debris. You try to pull it free. It doesn't budge. You dig a little. Then you stop. Because you know there's a man still wearing it. And you don't want to see what's left of him. So you cover it up again. Pack sandbags around it. Mark it with a stick. Move on. Later that week, a shell hits nearby. You're far enough back not to catch the full blast, but close enough to feel the concussion rattle through your bones. When you return to the section, the trench has changed again. New holes, new cracks, and the mud, it's risen. A section of the duckboard is gone, swallowed whole. You don't step near it. You don't look too closely. You just reroute your steps. You learn fast in the trench. Don't fight the earth. It always wins. That night, you dream of sinking. Not drowning, sinking. Slowly, peacefully, like slipping into sleep. The mud pulls you down and you don't resist. You don't scream. You just go. Into the dark. Into the earth. Into silence. When you wake, you're sweating. But you're not scared. You were almost comforted. It doesn't happen all at once. Not like they think. It's not a scream in the dark or a man running blindly across no man's land. It's quieter than that. Slower. You don't see it coming. You don't even realize it started until something inside you has shifted, and you know you're not quite the same man who climbed down into the trench a month ago. At first, it's just little things. Your hands shake ever so slightly when you hold your tea. You jump at sudden noises, not every time, just when you're caught off guard. You forget things. Your memory blurs around the edges. You stare at your boots for 10 minutes before realizing you were meant to be putting them on. You laugh it off. Everyone's tired, you say. Everyone's nerves are frayed. It's normal, but it doesn't stop. One night during stand to, a shell lands half a mile down the line. Not close enough to worry anyone, but you flinch. Hard. You drop your rifle. Your knees buckle. The corporal looks at you sideways but doesn't say anything. No one does. That's the rule. You don't talk about it. Not unless you want attention. And attention out here is the last thing anyone wants. The noise is constant. That's the part no one back home will ever understand. It never stops. Day and night, far and near, the thump of artillery, the rattle of gunfire, the high whine of incoming shells, the sharp bark of mortars. Even when it's quiet, it's not. You hear echoes. You imagine sounds. A bird's cry becomes a scream. A falling crate sounds like a man dropping. You live in a state of permanent flinch. Some men handle it better, or they pretend they do. They smoke more, joke louder, start fights over nothing just to bleed off steam. Others go silent. Not the usual trench quiet, not the resignation, but something deeper. A dead silence. Like a room where someone's died and no one's found the body yet. You start to have trouble sleeping. The dreams come back, sharp now, more vivid. You're buried alive. You're crawling through barbed wire with your eyes sewn shut. You're trapped in the dugout, and it's flooding, and the roof's caving in, and someone's screaming, but it's your voice, and you wake up gasping, heart pounding, drenched in sweat. There's a lad in your section, maybe 18, who stopped talking altogether. He just stares, doesn't respond when spoken to, eats mechanically, moves like clockwork. He stands his watches, does his duties, but the light behind his eyes has gone out. One day, during a barrage, he simply walks out of the trench. No weapon, no helmet, just walks straight into no man's land like he's taking a stroll through a park. They found what was left of him an hour later. They called it suicide, but you wonder if he even knew what he was doing. The officers call it nerves. They say it like it's something shameful, weak. as if a man who's watched his mates die, who's been shelled for weeks, who hasn't slept more than a few hours at a time in months, as if that man is supposed to stay perfectly calm, perfectly upright, perfectly sane. You heard someone use the word hysteria. That's what they called it when the lad from C Company started twitching uncontrollably during a bombardment. Full body spasms, froth at the mouth. His eyes rolled back in his head and he muttered nonsense until the stretcher bearers dragged him away. They tied him down in the dressing station, injected something into his arm, said he'd be sent to the rear for observation. He never came back. Some men get lucky. They're sent to the convalescent depots, get a few weeks of rest and warm beds. But more often, they're labeled malingerers, fakers, cowards. You've heard stories of men shot for desertion because they couldn't face another night of shelling. Men who ran not because they were traitors, but because they'd been broken, shattered like glass. And no one knew how to put them back together. You don't run. You're not that far gone. But you feel the cracks forming. You start avoiding eye contact. You speak less. When the shelling starts, you hunch low, grip your helmet, press your eyes shut, and wait. You try not to breathe too fast. You try not to cry. One time, during a heavy barrage, you piss yourself and don't even notice until it's over. The lad next to you does the same. No one says a word. The fear changes you. It seeps into your bones. Not just fear of death, fear of sounds, of movement, of silence. You flinch when someone calls your name. You twitch in your sleep. You see shapes that aren't there. You're constantly waiting for something to fall, for someone to scream, for the trench to collapse. Your body reacts before your brain does. A bang, even a dropped pot, and you're ducking. A shadow passes too quickly, and you're reaching for your rifle. A boot slaps too hard in the mud, and you're already halfway into the fire step. You apologize. You laugh it off. But your mates don't laugh with you. They've seen it too many times. They know. You try to write about it, to explain it, but the words don't come. How do you describe this kind of fear? How do you explain that you're scared of silence, scared of noise, scared of sleep, scared of not sleeping? That you haven't felt peace in months, that your hands won't stop trembling, and your chest feels like it's clamped in a vice. Instead, you write that you're fine, that you're managing, that the weather's turned, that you had a good smoke and the lads are still in good spirits. You fold the paper, press it flat, seal it like a confession. The medics can't help you. Not really. They give you aspirin. They tell you to rest. One tells you to read the Bible. Another says you need discipline and routine. You nod and thank them and go back to the trench knowing nothing will change. That you'll just carry on shaking in the dark. The only relief, if you can call it that, is the numbness that follows. After a while, your nerves don't just fray, they die. You stop reacting. You don't jump at bangs. You don't flinch at bodies. You don't weep when a mate is hit. You go blank, hollow. You see a man's head taken clean off and feel nothing. Not horror, not grief. Just a small, sinking acknowledgement that he won't be at breakfast tomorrow, that someone will have to write a letter, that you'll be one man closer to the front of the line. You stop dreaming, or if you do, you don't remember. Your sleep is black and still, like a pond choked with weeds. One evening, during a lull, you sit with a younger lad. He's new, fresh, still has hope in his eyes. He asks what it's like when the shelling starts. You look at him, and you want to be kind. You want to protect him from the truth. But you don't. You tell him the noise is unbearable, that your bones shake like sticks, that the air turns to liquid and you can't breathe, that you pray for it to end and for it not to hit you, and for it to hit you quickly, cleanly, so you don't have to feel it. He laughs nervously, thinking you're joking. You don't correct him. The chaplain visits more frequently now, talks softly, offers tea. No sermons, just presence. He knows. He's seen the men who used to talk, now silent. The hands that used to write, now too stiff to hold a pencil. He lays a hand on your shoulder and says you're brave. You don't feel brave. You feel broken. But you nod anyway. You start to carry something in your pocket. A stone, a coin, a scrap of cloth, a reminder, a weight. Something to grip when the barrage begins, when the sky turns red, when your teeth rattle in your skull and the earth tries to swallow you whole. It helps, a little. Everyone has their own talisman. The days blur. Time means nothing. Hours stretch, then vanish. You forget the names of villages, of months, of people. You see faces that aren't there, hear voices in the rain. You lose track of where the war ends and where you begin. And yet, somehow, you keep going. Not out of courage, not out of duty, but because movement is easier than stillness. Because if you stop, even for a moment, you might never start again. You're not mad, not yet, but you've seen the edge, felt it under your boots, looked down and known how easy it would be to fall. And every day, the trench waits. The order doesn't come with a drum roll. There's no fanfare, just a whisper passed down the line, like a rumor. You hear it from the corporal. He heard it from the sergeant. Battalion's moving. You're in the next wave. Tomorrow morning, 0 hour, 5:20. Going over the top. You nod, as if this is something you've been expecting. In a way, you have. Everyone knows it's only a matter of time. You can't live in the trench forever. Sooner or later, you're sent out into the open, into no man's land, into the teeth of machine guns and shells and God knows what else. That night is the longest of your life. They call it the Last Supper, though no one says it aloud. The lads get a hot meal, stew, thick and brown and steaming, and a double ration of rum. You sip it slow, letting the warmth coat your throat. It burns, but it takes the edge off the shaking. There's a silence among the men that isn't quite fear. It's expectation, a shared, quiet understanding that tomorrow some of you will be missing. You don't talk about it. You talk about football, about girls, about what you'll do when you get leave. You tell the same jokes you always do, but softer now. Like you're afraid to make too much noise. A lad across from you, 16, maybe 17, asks if it'll hurt. You tell him no. You lie. He nods, says he'll keep his head down. You don't have the heart to tell him that won't matter. You sit in the dugout and write a letter. You don't know what to say. There's no way to say goodbye without saying goodbye. So you don't. You write about the food, about the weather, about how you hope the dog's still keeping the postman away. You fold it carefully, seal it, leave it with your effects, just in case. Sleep doesn't come. The ground's too cold, your thoughts too loud. You lie there, eyes wide, staring into the dark. The hours crawl by. Rats skitter across the floor. Someone cries quietly into their blanket. You don't say anything. You just listen. At 4, you're woken if you weren't already. There's no ceremony, just movement. You pull on your boots, fix your kit, check your rifle. Hands trembling, breath short. The trench is still dark, but flares pop in the sky above no man's land, lighting it in bursts. You glimpse the wire, the mud, the holes, the bodies, then blackness again. At the parapet, the officers move down the line, handing out final orders. Some read from scraps of paper, others just speak from memory. You don't hear the words. Your pulse is too loud. You grip your rifle so tightly your knuckles go white. Bayonets fixed. That sound, the sharp metal click, is like a death bell. Dozens of men all making the same motion, preparing to kill or die trying. You take your place, shoulder to shoulder with the others. The trench is full, elbows pressed against bodies. Steam rises in the cold from mouths and backs and helmets. You feel like cattle in a pen. Then the barrage begins. British guns open up behind you. The ground shakes. The sky flashes. Shells scream overhead and crash into the German line. The noise is beyond deafening. It tears through you. You don't flinch anymore. It's too late for that. This is the creeping barrage. You've been trained for this. The guns advance in timed stages, clearing the way. You're meant to follow it, walking behind the explosions, stepping over the wreckage. Theoretically, it should keep the enemy pinned. Theoretically. Whistles blow. You climb the ladder. And you rise. The world narrows to a moment, the second your boots leave the trench and find purchase on open ground. The air hits you like a slap. Cold. Sharp. And then you're up, and so is everyone else, and the line moves forward like something born out of instinct. The first few steps are surreal. No gunfire, no explosions, just the pounding of boots, the sound of breath. You can't believe it's happening. You're out of the trench. You're moving. Then the machine guns open up. They don't sound like guns. They sound like tearing canvas, like bone breaking, like the devil himself unzipping souls. Men fall instantly. The line buckles but doesn't stop. You step over someone screaming, "Keep moving!" Training takes over. You don't think, you just go. The mud pulls at your legs. It's worse than in the trench. Cratered. Torn. Slick with blood and water. You fall. Climb up. Fall again. Around you, men are hit. Some drop like sacks. Others scream and clutch at wounds. You don't stop for them. You can't. The smoke is thick. You can't see the line anymore. You don't know if you're ahead or behind. You can hear the guns still, both ours and theirs. Shells land to your left. Dirt and debris rain down. You keep moving. The wire looms ahead. This is the real killer. Thick, twisted, tangled like a net of knives. You reach it and drop to your knees, cutting at it with pliers. Hands slick, breath ragged. You hear a cry behind you. Someone stuck, caught in the barbs. You don't look. You can't. The wire gives. You push through. Another shell hits nearby, too close. You're thrown into a crater. Your ears ring. Your face is slick with mud. You try to stand and fall again. Everything's spinning. You crawl. A few others are with you. You recognize one. Barely. His helmet's gone. His eyes wide and white in the filth. You nod at each other. You don't speak. The German line is close now. You can hear them shouting. See movement in the smoke. Someone raises a pistol. Fires. You duck. Fire back. You don't know if you hit anything. You don't even know if you're aiming in the right direction. You reach the trench, or what's left of it. It's collapsed in places, burning in others. You drop into it without thinking. You land hard. Your ankle twists. Pain flares. You scream. No one hears. Inside, it's chaos. Germans. British. Smoke. Screams. Steel. A bayonet flashes. You parry. Stab. Something warm sprays your arm. You don't stop. You don't register the face. Just the uniform. You move on. You lose time. 15 minutes? An hour? You don't know. You just move from crater to trench to ruin. You fire until the rifle jams. Then you use the butt. Then your fists. At some point, it stops. The whistle blows again. You drop back into a crater and lie there, breath heaving, ears ringing, hands shaking. You can't move. You don't want to. You want the earth to open and swallow you. Someone touches your shoulder. A corporal. his face streaked with blood and soot. "We've taken the trench," he says. You nod. Later, much later, you sit in the captured line. It's worse than yours. Narrower. Filthier. You don't care. You sit with your back against the wall and try to drink water from your canteen. It tastes of metal, of earth, of blood. You don't speak. No one does. The survivors don't look at each other. They just sit, staring. The lad from last night, the one who asked if it would hurt, isn't here. You find what's left of him an hour later, half buried in a shell hole. His hand still gripping the photo of his family. You don't cry. You go back to the trench the next morning. You write another letter. You don't mention going over the top. You just say, "I'm still here." It begins with a shout. Not a command, not a warning from up the line, just a single, panicked cry that rises from the mist like a broken alarm. Then another, then dozens, all colliding with each other in a wave of sudden chaos. Gas! Gas! You've heard the drill 100 times. This is no drill. You reach for your mask without thinking, fumble with the strap. Your fingers shake. Heart pounding, lungs tightening before you've even inhaled. Someone's mask snaps off and lands in the mud. He dives for it like it's life itself. Because it is. By now, the trench is a frenzy. Men shouting, some frozen, others scrambling. The first wisps arrive, not smoke, not steam, but a low rolling fog with purpose. Greenish yellow, hugging the ground, moving slow but sure. Not like fire. Fire charges. This creeps and climbs. You manage to fix your mask. Feel the rubber seal tighten around your face, the world narrowed to 2 lenses, and the hiss of your own breathing. The air smells faintly sweet, like rotting flowers, like something dead pretending to be alive. Not all the men are quick enough. You hear coughing, retching, the gurgling, horrible sound of lungs filling with something they shouldn't. Gas doesn't just kill, it humiliates. It makes a man weep and claw at his own face, strip his tunic off in desperation, throw himself into the mud just to escape the air. You grip your rifle, not because you need it, but because you need something. Something to ground you, something to say you still have control. The gas clings. It lingers in dips and hollows. It soaks into the mud, into the walls. It doesn't obey rules. It ignores trenches. It drifts back when the wind changes. It waits. You can't shoot gas. You can't dig under it. You can only hope your mask holds. And not all masks do. You saw one rot through last week. A lad had a faulty canister. They didn't find out until it was too late. He inhaled deep, thought he was safe. Then came the choking, the blood, the burn. His throat swelled until he couldn't breathe. Eyes blistered shut. By the time the medics came, he was already halfway gone. He died like a fish on a dock, mouth opening and closing, hands scrabbling at the sky. Chlorine gas was bad. Phosgene was worse. But mustard is the devil. It doesn't announce itself. No color, no scent. You don't know it's there until the symptoms start, the itching, the coughing, the skin burning as if fire lived under it. Blisters the size of fists, skin falling off in sheets. Mustard doesn't need to be inhaled. It soaks through clothes, through boots, through you. Even your eyelids blister. You go blind before you go unconscious. And the worst part, the part no one talks about, is how long it takes to die. Hours, sometimes days. Mustard gas is slow, cruel. It doesn't end you with a bang. It breaks you molecule by molecule. The medics can't do much. Saline washes, ointments, painkillers if they have them. You've seen the aid post after a gassing, row after row of moaning men, eyes bandaged, lungs ruined, skin red as fire. Some scream for water, others beg for morphine, some just lie still, already beyond it. You count the number of gas drills you've done. You've practiced them so often you can do it in your sleep. But sleep is no protection when the canisters burst. And the canisters always burst. Sometimes it's our gas. That's the horror of it. The wind shifts. The barrage misfires. Your own side sends out a wave, and it loops back like a curse. You hear the officers cursing, shouting orders, trying to clear the trench. You see men retreating, hands over masks, panic rising. It's not just fear, it's betrayal. The idea that the weapon doesn't care what uniform you wear, that the air itself has turned enemy. The psychological toll is worse than you expect. After the first attack, you sleep with your mask beside you. Some lads sleep with them on. Others refuse to sleep at all when there's a breeze. You start to imagine gas in every mist. Every fog is suspicious. Every dawn that smells of damp leaves makes your stomach knot. You keep tasting it, long after the attack ends. You breathe through clean cloth and still taste metal, flowers, vinegar. You wash your hands, your clothes, your skin, still it lingers. One night, a new lad wakes screaming. Says the gas is back. He's clawing at his eyes, pulling at his mask, trying to tear off his skin. There's no gas, just memory, just fear made flesh. It takes 3 men to hold him down. The chaplain prays over him. The rest of you look away. Gas changes how you move. You avoid the low spots in the trench. You keep a scarf handy, even when it's hot. You breathe shallow. You learn to read the wind like a sailor. West wind, bad. North wind, good. Stillness is worst of all. It means the stuff could be lingering, invisible, waiting for you to breathe deep. Even when you're not under attack, the threat lingers. You see the casualties pass through. Their faces, their eyes, their burns. And you wonder when it'll be your turn, whether your mask will fail, whether your body will hold. You start cleaning your gear obsessively, checking seals, rewrapping filters. You become a priest of your own survival. One crack, one faulty strap, and you're done. You know this. You've seen it happen. There's a story going around. A man swallowed his tongue after a gassing, choked on it rather than suffocate. Another rumor says a lad shot himself after his lungs gave out and he couldn't stand the pain. No one knows what's true anymore. The line between gossip and fact is as blurry as the horizon in the morning fog. You hear that the brass say gas is progress, that it shortens the war, that it breaks the stalemate, that it's necessary. You wonder if they've ever watched a man drown on dry land. You wonder if they'd say the same after dragging a maskless corpse out of a shell hole. The worst attack comes without warning. Midnight, windless, no flares, no whistle, just a slow creeping sensation in your lungs. A tightness, then a taste, then panic. Your hands reach automatically. The mask, you can't find it. Where is it? Where is it? Then it's on. You suck air through the filter. Eyes streaming, ears ringing. You can't tell how many others got theirs on in time. You hear coughing, shouts. You see a figure stumble past, hands outstretched, moaning like a ghost. You can't help him. You can't even help yourself. You crouch in the mud, gripping your knees, waiting for it to pass. The minutes stretch. Every breath is a gamble. The mask seals tight, but is it enough? You pray without knowing who to pray to. Eventually, the air clears, or so they say. You don't believe them. You hold your breath as long as you can, then longer. The sun rises. The trench is quiet. You check your mates. One's missing. Found later in a dugout, mask torn, mouth blackened. Another is alive but blind. He rocks back and forth, humming. The medics take him. You don't ask where. The gas always takes something, even if you survive. You wonder what it took from you this time. You wake up to birdsong. For a moment, you forget where you are. The sound is so gentle, so impossibly out of place, it feels like a dream breaking into reality. Then you open your eyes, and the trench walls are still there. The mud, the stench, the sky gray and empty overhead. But still, birdsong. That's a kind of miracle. The war doesn't stop. The guns don't fall silent for long. But there are moments, rare, small, precious, when something slips through the cracks. A piece of normal, a breath of humanity. You learn to cling to these like a starving man clings to crumbs. Someone found a harmonica in a care package last week. Now every night, after stand down, he plays it. Badly. Out of tune. Like a cat being strangled in a tin can. But no one complains. The sound is soft, strange, oddly comforting. A reminder that music still exists, that not every sound has to come from a shell or a scream. One of the lads has a tin of condensed milk. Real milk. Sweet. Thick. He shares it with the section, 1 spoonful each. You'd think it was gold the way it passes from hand to hand. You let it sit on your tongue. Let it melt. Try to remember what it was like to drink a cup of tea at home in a kitchen that didn't shake with artillery. Another lad receives a parcel from home. Socks, chocolate, a newspaper weeks out of date. The pages are brittle, but you devour them. You laugh at headlines about rationing back home, as if anyone in France has time to worry about margarine. You read every article, even the adverts, especially the adverts. You stare at the drawings of suits, of ladies' dresses, of holidays by the sea. It's like looking at another planet. Letters are the greatest mercy of all. When they come, when they survive the mud and the censors and the confusion of the front, a scrap of paper in your hand, written in ink that still smells faintly of home. Your mother, your wife, a girl you once kissed under a bridge. You read it again and again. The words become a rhythm, a chant, something holy. You keep the letter in your breast pocket, close to your heart, tucked in with the paybook and the folded photo. In battle, it protects you more than the helmet ever could. There's a dog in the next trench section. No one knows where it came from. It just appeared one day, mud-streaked, half-starved, tail wagging. They call him Captain. He sleeps in the dugout, eats scraps, barks at shadows. When the shelling starts, he doesn't run. He lies beside the men, silent and steady. Some nights, he curls up beside you. Warmth, a heartbeat, the comfort of something that doesn't ask questions. The chaplain organizes a service on Sundays when the weather allows. No pews, no altar, just a crate, a Bible, and the rasp of his voice over the wind. Some men kneel, others stand, heads bowed. You're not religious, not really, but there's something in it, the rhythm of old words, the comfort of ritual, the idea that somewhere beyond this mud and madness, there is meaning. You find laughter too. Dark, desperate, but real. When a rat runs off with someone's biscuit. When a man falls in a shell hole and comes up covered in green slime. When someone puts on a fake posh voice and reads a letter aloud like a butler. The humor is sharp, gallows-bound, and necessary, because without it, there's only silence. One morning, you catch snowflakes on your glove. Tiny, perfect crystals that melt almost instantly. For a second, you just watch them fall. Soft, quiet, pure. The guns fall silent too, just for a moment. A white stillness settles. The trench becomes a painting. Then someone coughs, and the spell breaks. But you remember it, that sliver of peace. And there's the sky. It changes, more than you expect. Sometimes it's blazing with color, oranges, reds, purples. You stand on the fire step and watch it as the sun goes down, the light painting the clouds like oil on water. It doesn't matter that you're filthy, freezing, half mad with fatigue. In that moment, you are simply a man watching the sky. That matters. There are stories too, told around a candle in the dugout, half true, half dreamed. A ghost that walks no man's land, a sniper who never misses, a trench that collapsed in a single night and took an entire platoon. You don't believe them, but you tell them anyway, because stories are how you remember what it means to speak. You get a new pair of boots. They almost fit, dry even. You feel like a king. You walk a little taller that day. Your back aches less. Your feet feel lighter. It's absurd how something so small can feel so immense. A miracle made of leather and laces. You find a flower growing out of the trench wall. Blue. Brave. You don't pick it. You just look at it every day, wondering how it got here, how it survives. Some of the lads think it's lucky. You hope they're right. Then there's mail call, the biggest gift of all. A package from home. Inside, a tin of corned beef, a scarf knitted by your sister, a bundle of letters, a single hand-rolled cigarette. You hold it like treasure. You light it slowly. Inhale. It burns smooth, steady, comforting. Smoke drifts up into the dawn. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you're somewhere else. Not all joy comes in parcels. Sometimes it's just the absence of pain. A dry day, a ceasefire, a quiet night where no one dies. You sit on your crate and sip tea made from boiled snow and think this is as close to peace as it gets. Sometimes you sing. Not because you're happy, but because singing fills the space where fear lives. A hymn, a drinking song, something from a pub back home. The voices rise rough and cracked, but together they sound like hope. You pass a bottle of spirits down the line. Everyone gets a sip. It burns like hell. You smile anyway. You draw, sketch, write poems, crude ones mostly. Rhymes about mud and rats and officers. But every so often, someone writes something beautiful, something fragile. You hear it in the words and think, yes, that's what it feels like to be human again. You remember birthdays. You mark them on trench walls. You share crumbs of chocolate like they're cake. You make toasts to invisible friends. You raise tin mugs to the idea of survival. You dream, still, not just nightmares. Sometimes real dreams. Of walking through a field, of hearing your name called by someone you love, of stepping off a train into a station that smells of coal and bread and clean clothes. Those are the ones that hurt the most when you wake, but you treasure them all the same. You carry tokens, a coin, a photograph, a pencil from school, a pressed flower. Not because they're useful, but because they prove you existed before this place, that you had a life with edges and details and sunlight. When someone goes home on leave, they bring back stories of trains, of laughter, of pubs and women and music on the wireless. You gather around, hungry for the sound of a world not made of wire and ash. Even just hearing the word London feels like a song. Sometimes you get leave yourself. 48 hours. It's dizzying. You walk down streets that aren't torn apart, sit in chairs that don't sink, sleep in a bed without hearing gunfire. And the silence, the true, deep silence, is unbearable. You wake in the middle of the night sweating, heart racing, ears searching for shellfire. When you don't hear it, you almost cry. Then you come back. To the trench, to the lads. And strangely, impossibly, you feel relief. Because at least here, you understand the rules. The ghosts are everywhere. Not just the dead, but the memories, the echoes. You carry them like extra weight. You remember the way Jones laughed, the song Walker always sang, the joke Thompson told that made everyone cough tea through their nose. They're gone now, but they still walk with you. In the pauses between barrages, in the stillness before stand-to, in the space between breaths, the trench is misery, hunger, pain, but somehow life still grows in it, crooked, fragile, defiant. And that, more than any weapon, any battle, any victory, is the thing the war never expected. You, still here, still human, still capable of joy. No one tells you how the war ends. There's no trumpet, no marching band, no officer standing tall in clean boots shouting, "It's over." Instead, it seeps into the trenches like the gas once did, quiet, strange, and hard to believe. A rumor at first, a whisper passed down from the rear. Talks, then armistice, then maybe home. You hear it for the first time while cleaning your rifle. The corporal leans in and mutters it like a secret. They say it's coming. Tomorrow, 11 o'clock. You don't know what to say. You just stare at the mud and wonder if this is another cruel joke, another false hope tossed like a bone to starving dogs. But the whispers grow, spread. Something is shifting. You feel it in the air. The tension tightens, not loosens. Like the moment before a storm breaks. They're still shooting, still shelling. The war doesn't stop because someone signed a paper in a distant train carriage. The war keeps grinding on, hour by hour, minute by minute. Men still fall. You see one shot clean through the chest just after dawn. He bleeds out in the same mud that swallowed thousands. The stretcher bearers don't even run anymore. They just walk. It's armistice morning, and you're ordered to stand to like always. The guns still bark, the earth still shakes, but everyone's glancing at their watches now. 11. 11 is the line in the sand. That's when the clocks stop bleeding. That's when time begins again. At 10:59, a shell lands 50 yards from your trench. A man screams. Another dives to the floor. You brace for the reply, but then silence. Real silence. Not the pause between bombardments. Not the dead hush of fear. A true, aching absence of sound. No guns. No mortars. No rifles. No shouting. Just air. Empty. Pure. You don't believe it at first. You keep your head low, waiting for the whistle of another shell. You expect it to come screaming back, as it always has. But nothing comes, and slowly you rise. All along the trench, men are standing, cautious, dazed, as if afraid to breathe too loud and start it all up again. Some weep, others laugh. Some stare into the middle distance, mouth slightly open, trying to process a world without death in the sky. You step out of the trench, not over the top, not into battle, but upright, standing tall. The mud feels different under your boots, lighter, or maybe it's just your legs. You look across no man's land, and for the first time, there are shapes moving on the other side that aren't enemies. They're just men, as stunned and silent as you. Some wave, others simply nod. One raises a hand to his forehead, almost a salute. You return it without thinking, and then you sit. Right there on the fire step, rifle across your knees, and you try to feel something. Joy doesn't come, not right away. You're too tired for joy, too hollow, too worn. Because survival is not the same as victory. You didn't win, you endured. The trench didn't kill you, but it changed you, bent you, left marks inside you that no doctor can see and no uniform can hide. You hear phantom shells. You wake to rats that aren't there. You flinch when someone drops a cup. You dream in flashes, mud, blood, screaming, silence. But you're alive. And that is no small thing. The days after the armistice are strange. There's no clear instruction, no immediate parade, no golden ticket home, just confusion, cleanup, recounting, lists of names, numbers, bodies. The war machine doesn't stop. It grinds down slowly, chewing on its own tail. You pack up your gear like it's just another rotation. Stow your tin mug, your shaving kit, the photo in your pocket. Some lads carve their initials into the trench wall before leaving. A kind of burial, a final word. The journey back is surreal. Trains full of silent men, faces drawn, eyes wide. You pass through towns still flying tattered flags. People cheer, throw flowers. You can't look them in the eye. Not yet. You're grateful, but numb. When you step off the train in your hometown, you barely recognize it. The air smells wrong, clean, soft. The cobblestones don't shake. The walls don't weep. You see faces you knew or think you knew. You try to smile. Your mother cries when she sees you. Your brother grips your shoulders like you might vanish. You say, "I'm all right." You lie. Because how do you explain what it means to survive the end? How do you describe the guilt that lives in your chest, heavy as your old kit bag? The guilt of breathing when others didn't, of walking away when others were carried, of hearing laughter again when your mates' voices are still buried in mud. You walk differently now, slower, more deliberate. Crowds overwhelm you. Bright lights disorient you. Thunderstorms send you under tables. You try to find your old routines, the pub, the barber, the shop, but everything feels off, like wearing someone else's coat. Some people call you a hero. They shake your hand, buy you drinks, clap you on the back. You nod, thank them. But inside, you think of the lads who were braver, who stood up when they could have stayed down, who smiled before walking into fire. You're not a hero. You're a witness. The medal comes in the post, cold metal in a soft pouch. You hold it in your hand and think about what it cost. You tuck it into a drawer and leave it there. You get a job, something quiet, something simple, a shop, a desk, somewhere no one shouts. You shave every morning, polish your boots, carry yourself straight. Discipline is hard to unlearn. You try to talk about the war. Once, at the pub, the table falls quiet. Someone makes a joke. The moment passes. You learn to keep it inside. Safer that way. But some nights, you go for long walks, into the fields, under the stars. And there, in the hush, you speak the names aloud. The ones who didn't come back. You speak them like prayers, like promises. You sit on a fence post and watch the moon rise. You remember the cold steel of a bayonet in your hands, the weight of a man bleeding beside you, the harmonica echoing in the dugout, the dog curled at your feet, the flower growing from the trench wall. You survived the end. That doesn't mean you left it behind. The trench still lives in you, in your shoulders, your breath, your blood. But so do the small mercies, the bird song, the letter in your pocket. And slowly, slowly, you begin to hope again, not in speeches, or monuments, or medals, but in the sound of rain on a window, in the laugh of a child, in the feel of warm bread in your hands. That's what surviving the end really means, finding pieces of life again. One small miracle at a time.